Okay, good morning, Zev. Hope you had a nice Shabbos. We're continuing on in Avodah Zarah, Perek Beis, Mishnah Hay. Mishnah Hay, a very, very important source for everything that relates to the halachas of Gvinas Akum. In the previous Mishnah, we saw that Rab Meir and the Chachomim disagree whether it's mutar to derive benefit to have hana from the cheeses of Beis Unaiki. All agree, however, Rab Meir and the Chachomim agree that we may not eat the cheeses of the Avodah Zarah. We may not eat their cheeses. We may not eat Gvinas Akum. Why is this? This is due to a Gzeira D'Rabbanan that prohibits the eating of any cheese of idolaters. A Gzeira D'Rabbanan that prohibits the eating of any Gvinas Akum. Now comes along this Mishnah Hay and discusses the reason for that decree. And there is an involved back and forth here between the Tanoim. Omar Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Shol Rabbi Shmuel is Rabbi Yeshua kishahoyu ma'alchim baderech. Rabbi Shmuel asked Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Shmuel presented a question to Rabbi Yeshua while they were walking on the road, while they were traveling on the road. Amar lo, he said to him, listen here, please tell me, mipnei ma asu gvinos ha'oivdik ha'chovim. Why did the Chachomim make a gezerah that assers the eating of Gvinas Akum? Why did they make a gezerah that prohibits the cheeses of idolaters? So he answered him straight. Amar loi, Rabbi Yeshua responded, Mipnei shema'amidin oisa bekeva shel nevela. That is the key phrase in this sugya. Mipnei shema'amidin oisa bekeva shel nevela. Because they curdle it with a rennet of the stomach of a nevela. Because they curdle it with rennet from the stomach of a nevela. Let's understand what this is. The term rennet, which is, again I say, the key word in the entire sugya of Gvinas Akum, the term rennet, as we're using it here, refers to the congealed milk found in the stomach of a calf that is still nursing from its mother. When rennet is placed into milk, it causes the milk to curdle, that is, to harden into pieces, into curds. Curds curdle. When rennet is placed into milk, it causes the milk to curdle, that is, to harden into pieces from which cheese is going to be made. So he tells him that the answer is, what is a nevela? A nevela is an animal that died without shchita. If, for example, an idolater slaughters an animal, it also is considered a nevela, even if he performed the proper shchita. So stam nevela is you take an animal, you shoot it, that's a nevela, there was no shchita. You take an animal, you stab it, and it dies, that's a nevela, there was no shchita. On the other hand, if an idolater slaughters an animal, even if he uses the maisa shchita, still in all, it's considered a nevela. So at this point, Rabbi Yeshua holds that the halachic status of rennet is identical to the status of the animal in which it is found. And therefore, the rennet is assered, the rennet is asur as nevela. As nevela. That's what he told him. So the Mishnah says weiter that Rabbi Shmuel is not satisfied with this answer. And he gave him a big counter argument. Amar Loisa, he said to Rabbi Shmuel, Va'alo kevas oila chamura mikevas nevela, but rennet from the stomach of an oila offering, from a korban oila, rennet from the stomach of a korban oila has a stricter status than rennet from the stomach of a nevela. We see this from the fact that it's also to derive any benefit from a korban oila, while it is permissible to derive benefit from a nevela. So he says to him, "Valokevas oila chamura mikevas nevela, ve'omu kohen shedaita yafa sofa chaya." And yet the Chachamim said that a kohen who is not sensitive, what do you mean he's not sensitive? He's not disgusted to drink the content of an animal's stomach. So the Chachamim said that kohen shedaita yafa, that he's not disgusted, sofa chaya, he may gulp down the rennet from the stomach of an oila while the rennet is still raw, which means that the kohen was allowed to eat it cooked as well if he wished. However, a kohen would typically drink it raw. In addition, there were no dairy vessels in the temple, so he would have to drink it raw. He couldn't cook it. There were no dairy vessels. There was no such thing as milchik vessels in the Beis Hamikdash. So what do we see from here? What is it? What is he saying? What is Rabbi Shmuel saying to him? So clearly, the rennet of an oila does not have the status of an oila. Doesn't have the status of an oila, and is permitted. Why is it permitted? Because the rennet is no longer considered food, but rather it's considered digestive waste of the animal. So it follows then that the rennet of a nevela, whose status is less severe than that of a korban oil of kochim, is certainly not prohibited. So now the Mishnah interrupts this discussion, this back and forth, to point out that others do not permit the kohen to eat the rennet. But yet, Rabbi Shmuel's objection is still valid even according to those opinions, that do not permit the kohen to eat the rennet. So the Mishnah therefore says, V'lo hoidu loi. Other Chachamim do not agree with the ruling of Rabbi Shmuel said in the name of those sages. Aval homu, but they rather said, Einanin v'loi mo'alin. Einanin v'loi mo'alin. That is, that one may not benefit from the rennet of an oila and certainly not drink it. Yet, if one did benefit from it, it is not considered me'ila. It is not considered me'ila. What does that mean it's not considered me'ila? If someone unlawfully benefits from anything from the Beis Hamikdash, anything from the Beis Hashem, it's considered an act of me'ila, to be moyel behegdesh. If one did this unintentionally, he's required to bring a korban osham. Now, whenever the Mishnah writes that it's prohibited to have benefit from an article, but it is not considered an act of me'ila, this is because this is not an isur d'oraisa. This is not a biblical act of me'ila. That is, benefit is permissible on the biblical level, on the d'oraisa level, and the prohibition is only midirabonon. So let's go back. Aval omru, but rather they said, ein nanin v'loy mo'alin. One may not benefit from the rennet of an oila, and certainly not drink it. Yet, if one did benefit from it, it's not considered me'ila. So from the fact that even the Chachomim who prohibit having benefit from the rennet of an oila agree that it is not subject to me'ila, we see that the isur is only midirabonon. It's an Isur only midrabanan, created by the Chachomim to put into place due to the stringency, to the severity of Kotshim, of an Oila. So Rabbi Shmuel's objection is therefore valid even according to this opinion, since as far as the basic law, as it applies to Nevela, is concerned, all agree that Rennet is permitted. So what then? What then is the basis for the prohibition of Gvinas Aku? So we're back to our question. So what then is the basis for the prohibition of the cheeses of idolaters? Chazar Amar Loi, so Rabbi Shmuel took then a different approach and said, so Rabbi Yeshua then took a different approach and said to Rabbi Shmuel, Mipnei shema'amidin oisa bekevas egle avodah zarah. The reason why it is prohibited to eat cheeses of idolaters is because idolaters curdle it with rennet from the stomach of calves that were offered for Avodah Zarah. So even though the rennet of an avela and even of an oila is permitted, as we explained, the rennet of an animal brought for idolatry is prohibited. This is because there is a pasuk in Devarim, Perek Yud Gimel, pasuk Yud Ches, an important, well-known pasuk and source, which says, "V'lo yidbak biyadcha me'uma min hacherem." V'lo yidbak biyadcha me'uma min hacherem. Nothing of the forbidden items shall remain attached to your hands. But what does this teach you? This teaches us, as the Gemara, that anything related to the idol, anything having anything or whatever to do with the Avodah Zarah, even the waste, or even the rennet, anything related to the akrova of Avodah Zarah is prohibited. That's what he told them. The reason that it's also is because the reason the Chachomim made a gezerah is because anything related in any way, shape, or form to the akrova of the Zorah is also. So therefore, being that their maimid, their cheeses in the keva of Egle Avodah Zarah, therefore it's also. So again, Rabbi Shmuel is not satisfied with the explanation. Amar Loi, so he said to him, Im Kain, Lama Lo Asru Be'ano, if that is the case, why did they prohibit it? Why didn't they asr it Be'ano as well? Because we saw in the previous Mishnah that it's prohibited to have any benefit from an item that was used as an offering for Avodah Zarah. Anything that was brought, anything that was used, anything that is related to the akrov of Avodah Zarah is also be'ano. So he's asking him, why didn't they answer it be'ano as well? So now comes an interesting part of the Mishnah, in which we see that Rabbi Yeshua did not answer Rabbi Shmuel's question. Didn't answer his question, since in truth he knew that the Chachomim did not prohibit the cheese of idolaters due to the concern that the idolaters made their cheese with prohibited rennet. Rabbi Yeshua, however, as we'll see in a minute and I'll explain, was not in a position to reveal the true reason at this point. And therefore, instead of answering Rabbi Shmuel's question, he changes the subject and he asks him a question about how to read a certain pasuk in Shir HaShirim. Now let's explain. We said a number of critically important things here. He didn't give him the reason. He didn't give him the reason. Why didn't he give him the reason? There's a Gzeira D'Rabbanan here. And as a rule, the Rav explains this very well. If you take a look in the Rav Divrei Maschil, Isiyo Ledavar Acher, as a rule, the Chachomim would not reveal the reason for a given Gezerah that they made until 12 months have passed from the time of the enactment of the Gezerah. Why is this? Because the Chachamim wanted to make sure that the Gezerah takes hold, that the Gezerah becomes part of the routine, part of the Derech HaChaim. People might not understand the reason. And if they may not understand the reason, they may not respect the Gezerah, they may not accept the Gezerah. They may question it, they may make a big to-do about it, which would then prevent the Gezerah from taking hold. So the Chachomim would therefore wait until a decree, until a Gezerah was fully accepted by Klal Yisrael, and it became firmly established as part of the life, and only then did they reveal the reason. Now, at the time of this incident, at the time of this discussion, the Chachomim only had recently made the Gezerah of Gvinas Akum, and therefore Rabbi Yeshua was unable to reveal to Rabbi Shmuel the real reason why the Chachomim prohibited the cheese of idolaters. Now, in truth, the Gezerah was due to the concern that the idolaters would make their cheese with actual flesh of the stomach of the nevela rather than just with the rennet. Now, the stomach itself, which of course is non-kosher, contains enzymes that cause the milk to curdle. So the flavor that comes out of the piece of stomach meat used to make the cheese is too small to be detected in the cheese. So the truth of the matter is that if that's the case, the Yoredeya principle that should come into play here is that if it's too small to be detected in the cheese, it should be bottled. It should be nullified in the much larger amount of milk. So why not? Why isn't it bottled? So here comes another very important principle of Yoredeya, and that is that in spite of the fact that it's small, in spite of the fact that it could be bottled within the much larger amount of milk, it's not bottled because it is a davar ha'maimid. A davar ha'maimid, a very important klal in Yoredeya. It's a davar ha'maimid, since this small amount is something whose effect is to what? To solidify the milk into cheese. It is evident in the final product. How is it evident in the final product? Because without the small amount, it wouldn't have become the solidified piece of cheese. It's a davar ha'maimid. Ze ma'amid et ze liyot ma shezeh. It gives it the strength to become what it is. And therefore the Chachomim were gozer that it should not become nullified. And therefore the cheese may not be eaten. And it's because of this concern that the Chachamim prohibited all cheeses of idolaters, even those made with enzymes from a vegetable source. Lo plug. Once the Gezerah was made, it encompasses everything and anything that relates to the making of cheese. That's a very important piece here, which is worthwhile for you, Zev, to look into the Rav inside, which he says it very, very nice. Just one little piece I'm going to read after he says why he didn't reveal the reason, because the reason is not revealed until after 12 months when the Gezerah takes hold. And he says, so at the end of the day, so why is it also? So why is Gvinas Akum also? So v'taima de also Gvinas Akum. The reason that Gvinas Akum is also ad hayom hazeh, מפני שמעמידין אויסה באור קבע של שחיטת עכו"ם שהיא נבלה. ואף על פי שהוא דבר מועט כנגד כל החלב, it's only a small part within the realm of the entire, but כיוון שהוא מעמיד החלב, it's a דבר המעמיד, that little bit is a very important piece to the entire formation and process that ultimately becomes cheese. כיוון שהוא מעמיד החלב, ואויסה בוי מייסה, it's actually something very constructive, it's productive, it has a very important element to it, that it ultimately is that element which creates the cheese. Therefore, lo batel. Says the Rav, the Kaimalon, because we have an important principle that akol hoylech achar ha'maimid. We always determine the halacha based on the maimid. Based on the maimid. And being that it's a davar maimid, that makes it also. Anyway, he didn't want to answer him, so he sidetracked and changed the subject. Isiyo in the davar acher, Rabbi Yeshua directed Rabbi Shmuel's attention to another subject, and he said to him, Amar loi, Yishmael achi, my brother, Yishmael, Eich atakoire, how do you read the posuk in Shir Hashirim, in Perek Aleph, posuk beis of Shir Hashirim? It says there, Kitoivim doidecha miyayin. Kitoivim doidecha miyayin. Do you read it? May he, the Rebbeinu Shalom, kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, because doidecha miyayin, because your love is better than wine? Or do you read it, Oy kitoivim doidayich, or do you read it because doidayich, your love, is better than wine? If it is read the first way, doidecha, then Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, are addressing the Rebbeinu Shalom directly, saying that they long to be kissed by God because your love is better than wine. If it is read the second way, dodayich, then the Jewish people are quoting the Rebbeinu Shalom's words about them, that we, the Jewish people, long to be kissed by God because he said about us that your love is better than wine. An important footnote here is that throughout Shir Hashirim, the Rebbeinu Shalom is referred to in the masculine form, and Am Yisrael is referred to in the feminine form. So if the word is vowelized, if the nekudos are doidecha in the masculine, it refers to God, your love. On the other hand, if the word is vowelized doidayich in the feminine, it refers to the Jewish people, your love with a small y. So taken the first way, the Jewish people are speaking about God's love for them. Taken the second way, the Jewish people are quoting what God said about the Jewish people's love for him, for the Rebbeinu Shalom. So Rabbi Shmuel responded, Amar lo, he responded that the second approach is correct. Ki tovim dodayich. It is read because dodayich, your love is better than wine. That is, the Jewish people are saying that they yearn to be kissed by God because he has said about them that their love, the love of Klal Yisrael, is better than wine. So Rabbi Yeshua rejects Rabbi Shmuel's response. Amar loi. So Rabbi Yeshua responded, Eina davar kein. It's not so. Rather, the first approach is correct. The pasuk should read, because doidecha is better than wine. How does he know that? Shari chavero milamed olav. Because chavero, its companion, the very next pasuk, teaches this about it. What is it? The next pasuk says, L'reach shmanecha toivim. Your oils, shmanecha, your oils have a goodly fragrance. And since that word is read, shmanecha, and is addressing God, so too the previous pasuk must be read as doidecha, that is also addressing God. In other words, that the two psukim need to be consistent with each other, both in the masculine form. Okay, but a little long, but it's an Indian that requires elaboration.